welcome to OverBoost 14. OverBoost is a podcast interview series featuring discussions with speedrunners about their history in speedrunning and gaming and the runs they're passionate about. I am your host, PMC Trilogy, and with me today is Waifu. Waifus, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
So I always like to start with recent events, especially stuff that, the runner is into. And I'm at the end of the year, I'm going to give you an opportunity to, of course, plug where people can find you. But up front, I really wanted to give you an opportunity to tell people why they should watch your video that just came out about bunny hopping.
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool. I literally just posted it today. Basically, it documents like the main history of bunny hopping and complex movement mechanics in general across speedrunning and other competitive gaming cultures. Because I got into Left 4 Dead 2 speedrunning, and that was the first time I had to deal with source-type movement, and that game has a lot of bunny hopping and complex movement mechanics, and I really loved that, and that was like my favorite aspect of the run. So there's actually a ton of games, speedrun-wise, that have similar movement mechanics, and so I thought that it's like really misunderstood by a lot of people, and I wanted to make something that was kind of like a tutorial, but actually explain the differences between the different types of techniques and mechanics between Quake from where it started all the way till like Doom Eternal and similar games. And I basically just put together this big long 30-minute video essay, documentary style video where I like reached out to each community members of each community, figured out exactly how the mechanics for their games work, and then tried to explain it in a way that's entertaining. And you can come away from the video knowing the difference between bunny hopping and like Half-Life 1 to Portal to Half-Life 2 to Doom Eternal and everything in between.
Yeah, what I thought was really neat about it in terms of sort of synthesizing an overall statement was that it seemed like a lot of the early bunny hopping stuff was unintended because there was sort of a response by developers to eliminate it either by patches or in future games. But now it seems like we're in an era where that sort of mechanical movement is being valued and emphasized by developers.
Yeah, definitely. That was like the meta-textual arc that the video goes over, is it starts off like, oh, look at this accidental movement tech that was made in Quake and similar games. And then gradually it gets faded out as developers don't like it. But a hardcore-based community, especially around games like Counter-Strike Source, brought it back into the forefront. And now you can really see that being an important aspect of games like Doom Eternal, where the whole gameplay loop is based around you being able to move fast and having these complex movement mechanics. And a lot of people really appreciate that, but that wasn't really seen for a long time.
Sure, yeah, no, absolutely. I do have one question about the video, though. Was that the Fear elevator music at the end?
Yeah, it was.
All right, I was like, damn, I feel like I recognize this track, and I had to ask. I tried to see if there were song credits in the video description or anything, and I was like, I think this is the music. But anyway, speaking of going back in time and knowing where things began, where does gaming start for you? What's the foundation?
I don't know. I guess mostly me and my dad used to play games together. He had a PS2. And we would play a lot of like Devil May Cry 1. That's like the main game I remember playing with him is Devil May Cry 1. And then my mom kind of was like, no, like these are like these violent video games you shouldn't be playing. Ironic since it's now my job to play those very same games, but foresight is not always the easiest thing to have. And eventually they came to like a middle ground and they got me a Super Nintendo. So I played a lot of like Super Mario 64, Link to the Past, games like that. And then eventually, when I was a little bit older, like probably like 10 to 13 range, I got the PS2 back, played a bunch of like Devil May Cry 3, Resident Evil 4, and I just kept gaming. It was like just a big part of my life. Eventually got an Xbox 360, and then from there I moved to a little dinky gaming laptop that was terrible. Put a lot of CSGO on that, and then eventually we got all the way to where I am now, where I'm with this big, nice gaming PC and playing games on release all the time and just loving it.
That's really interesting that you and especially because of the, I guess, the sort of parental disapproval that you went back in time. It seems like that you had that period of time. Now, do you still have that stuff that you grew up with, the SNES and the PS2?
Yeah, I do for sure. And I still play a lot of those games. Like, I'm a big fan of Kaizo Mario. You know, I love Link to the Past Randomizer. Most of the games that I speedrun now are games I played back then.
So that's usually a question I'll ask. I know you already mentioned Resident Evil 4. Of course, there's going to be some games that we get back into. The one thing I want to dig in maybe a little bit further in terms of the phases in gaming. You did mention that when you first got a PC to game on, you were doing like CS:GO and stuff. Did you have like phases where you were into particular multiplayer games like CS:GO?
Oh yeah, I mean, like I played a lot of Minecraft when I finally got the PC, and then I had this cousin. His name was Cayman, and he was like this big PC gamer. Like I would go to his house in Illinois, and like he had like 2 PCs set up, play like Age of Empires 2 and like CS Source, and like CS:GO would just come out, and like all this like cool PC gamer stuff, and I was just like this little console pleb, and I just didn't know what was going on, but like I thought it was really cool, and it was like really, really fun, and I really liked CS:GO. So by the time I got my own little dinky laptop, CS:GO actually like had a release, because we were playing like the beta build at his house, and so I just played that a lot. It's still my top played game to this day. I have the most hours in that, which is kind of crazy, especially since I was never good at it. But
I mean, Counter-Strike is hard to be good at. I feel like at one point in my childhood I was okay at 1.6, but that was also in an era before matchmaking. So I was, maybe okay on the 3 servers that I hung out on.
yeah, I totally feel that.
So what about speedrunning then? When did you first learn about speedrunning?
So this is like a really cool story, because I am from Arizona. And there are not that many speedrunners from Arizona, but there's more than you might think, especially since it's so hot that you can't go outside. You find hobbies inside. I was watching Games Done Quick, I think it was 2017, and I got fascinated by this run of Resident Evil 4 by my now really good friend, JTB. And I was like, man, this run's really awesome. I love this game. And I was dating this girl at the time, and we were playing RE4, just casually. I hadn't played it in years, but RE4 was probably one of the games I put the most time into when I was a kid. And I had watched JTB do this run, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like, the speedrunning thing seems awesome, but RE4 looks really hard. And I don't know if I want to ruin one of my favorite games by learning to speedrun it, because I had heard that happens sometimes.
Sure, that's a thing people say all the time about speedrunning your favorite game.
Yeah, for sure. So I was like, well, why don't I pick something that I love and that I think makes sense to speedrun? But if it gets ruined, I don't really care, right? It's not a huge deal. I probably wasn't going to play it again anyways. So I okay, most people speedrun platformers. Right, so what are my favorite platformers? So I'm like, well, there's Super Mario World, which is a SNES game. That would be really hard to speedrun, I think, because the game just seems difficult, and recording on a SNES is very difficult as well. So I was like, well, what's my favorite 3D platformer? So I was like, well, there's this Scooby-Doo game that I've always played on PS2 when I was a kid that I loved. It's called Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights, and it's this licensed Scooby-Doo game made by THQ Nordic, which you don't know is the same people that made Battle for Bikini Bottom, which ironically is now a huge speed game. But this Scooby-Doo game is like a 3D platformer Metroidvania, and I was like, I love this game. People speedrun platformers. I want to get into speedrunning. If I don't like it, then it's not a huge deal. So I'll just learn this. So I learned the run. Actually had a surprisingly active community. They taught me all about speedrunning and stuff. I did my first few streams with my like iPhone 5 filming sideways, filming my TV.
Ooh, the preferred method of capture.
Oh yeah, the best. On PS2, which isn't even the best platform to play the game on, and I just did my first few runs, and it was like really fun. But it's funny because it all stems from just not wanting to ruin one of my favorite games and thinking like, okay, yeah, platformers are what most people speedrun. So I ended up speedrunning this really small niche game when I actually wanted to speedrun RE4.
What, if you don't mind me asking, what is the preferred platform for Scooby-Doo, The Night of 100 Frights?
It is, well, when I run it now, the fastest way is on GameCube loaded on a Wii.
Oh, okay. That's I've recently been collecting information about like what are preferred ways of running like 6th generation games, and so I'm always very curious to hear from folks.
Yeah, it's GameCube has a few things that make it a little bit better, and then there's a specific version, like the launch version of the game, that has like one or two little tiny tech that saves a bit more time.
So you started with that, and then at what point you were like, actually, this is great. Now I'm going to do this with more games.
See, actually, this is the funny part.
Uh-oh.
So I was streaming, I didn't have a capture card. I just like filmed my TV or whatever. And I was like, man, this game is really fun. Except for like 25 minutes in, there's this trick called GGS. And this trick is so hard. It is like straight dumb hard. Like, it's so hard that like there's like 50 runs on the board. Like 25 of them don't do the trick. And it saves 10 minutes. So if you want a good time, you absolutely have to do this trick. And I probably had spent like at least a whole day's worth of real-time hours practicing it. And like, you do the whole run, it's like 25 minutes of like casual average platforming with a few skips, not too bad. And then right at the end, it's like super hard trick. And I was like, dude, this trick, it fucking sucks. I'm not doing this. Like, I need to find a different game to speedrun because I like the concept, but this trick just makes this run like unbearable to grind. So I'm like, okay, I'm done with that. Let's try to speedrun RE4 because I wanted to speedrun it originally. And I think now I've gained my bearings enough that I can actually go and do that. So the whole reason I started running RE4 is because this trick was too hard.
Have you been able to go back and master that trick since then? Because I feel like I see you stream this game sometimes. I'm pretty certain I've seen you do this during Waifu-thons.
Yeah, so I do Waifu-thons every Friday where I run a lot of games that I run in a row. And for nostalgia's sake, I always do Scooby because it's my first game. So I want to do it and show people it because it's actually a really cool run. And for a little bit there, I was grinding it to maybe get it into GQ or something. So I like did grind the trick, and I got it so where I could do it within 10 tries, which is still like pretty slow, but it's a lot better than losing like 5-10 minutes trying to get it. But it's one of those things that you just got to practice all the time, and I just don't really. So yeah, like yesterday I did a Waifu-thon, and it took me like 10 minutes to get it. But I did at one point have it to a level of mastery that I could like get it within 5 tries, but yeah, it's just really hard.
Yeah, no, sometimes it'd be like that. So now, how did Resident Evil 4 go then, as learning it as your second game?
So, for those who may not know, Resident Evil 4, I was right, is very hard. It's definitely one of the harder speed games that I know, and I know quite a few games now. It has a really high skill ceiling. It's really execution heavy. The main category is New Game Professional, so it's very brutal. If you get hit, you lose a ton of health, lose a ton of time. You have to play really, really well, and it's a long game. Like, your first run's probably going to be 2 hours long. And with Scooby being like 35 minutes long, that was a big step for me. So it took me a long time to get the hang of it, but once I like got it going, it was like super fun, like way more fun than Scooby. And I felt like I could never perform perfectly in this game, so there will always be something to do. Because I felt like with Scooby, like, I was kind of hitting the skill ceiling in some parts. Like, my movement would get kind of good, and then I wouldn't really know how to save time. But there always seemed like there was obvious time save in RE4, and that the road to progression was pretty clear, especially since that community was way more active and had way more runs. And there was also a lot of runner resources. Like, this guy named Let's Get Pitted, who was like an absolute unit pillar of the community back in the day.
Great runner. I've watched him fair bit of him.
Yeah, Pitted's awesome. And he made this amazing tutorial that at the time covered like the whole game, all the up-to-date strats and stuff. Since then, there's been several new tutorials, some from JTB, some from Mike Wave and stuff. But at the time, that Pitted tutorial was like the GOAT. And there was like 5 or 6 new runners like every month. I mean, people would drop, but like you would see new people in all the time. And you had like these big streamers that are super helpful and like are definitely down to help you and stuff, in the active Discord where you can just ask whatever. And so there was every possible resource I could ever want to learn this game. And super welcoming community. So I just jumped on it, and I didn't play anything else for like a year.
And I assume as you went along, you were probably were you running on PC then? Because I imagine that would make you were getting away from the PS2 webcam capture.
Yeah, definitely. I was playing on PC. Thankfully, it's an older game. You don't really need a great PC to capture it and stuff. So I had my little pre-built PC that I had got and just was going along with that. And stream was picking up a little bit. You know, lots of people like to watch RE4. Like, no one really cares about Scooby, so my webcam capture sideways on a PS2 TV was not like it was going to gain any traction or anything. But I, eventually got up to like 30, 40 average viewers streaming RE4 just for fun. I never thought that it would turn into anything that it did, but it was just cool, especially since the grind of speedrunning can be very monotonous, and streaming, you can have people come in and like help you with strats and like just distract you from the endless grind and stuff. So it was really nice to have that aspect as well.
No, I agree. That's definitely one of the great parts of streaming speedrunning is that, lots of things do become automatic, and then, you have people there, both to discuss the run itself as well as just to shoot the shit, so to speak. Now going on from there, you said you got to 30 to 40 viewers doing Resident Evil 4, but I think because it's not one of the games that we're going to discuss. The games that we'll be discussing later, we'll discuss a little more Resident Evil 4, a little more Left 4 Dead 2, and Devil May Cry 3. But I feel like I first noticed your name in connection with Resident Evil 2 Remake, which I think was a pretty big game for you, right?
Oh yeah. So basically, the story is kind of crazy. So I was going to college, and I wasn't really sure like what I wanted to do, just like drifting along. But I was going to an art school, and this art school that I was going to, it closed, and so we had to find somewhere to transfer to. And they had another school in San Diego, and so we were like, okay, well, we'll put you up in an apartment, and then you go to that school in San Diego. And so I was doing that, and at the time, I just like was really enjoying streaming, but I could only really play RE4 to get any viewers, and that was fine because I really liked RE4. But I knew that RE2 Remake was going to come out, and I was running RE4 on controller at the moment, and I'd never really gotten good with mouse and keyboard. I played CS, but not in like a single player experience was I ever good with mouse and keyboard. So I decided like 2 months before RE2 Remake came out that I was going to stop running RE4 on controller, and I was going to switch to keyboard and mouse. And that is a very big change in RE4, especially since the controls are kind of jank on mouse and keyboard. So I managed to stop, totally convert to mouse and keyboard, actually PB on mouse and keyboard before the game came out, within like 2 months. And then, once RE2 Remake came out, I decided I'm going to focus super hard on this, and I'm going to be one of the top runners. And so that's what I did. I just grinded like every day when I didn't have class. I grinded RE2 Remake, played it like 12 hours a day, got world record in a couple categories for a few days and stuff. And I went from my 40 average viewers at like peak RE4 to dropping down to like 15 average viewers because the game was new, to like 3 months later, 100 average viewers, and like applying for partner and stuff. And at the time, the school that I had transferred to also closed down. In fact, all of the schools in that school chain closed down all over the country. So I was just stuck with my lease in San Diego with nothing to do, no school, and RE2 just came out. So I just grinded the shit out of RE2, and I played it for like 6 months straight until my lease was up. And I grew to kind of hate the game and speedrun. It's really not my type of speedrun. But I made this dedication. I got Twitch partner. I got my name changed to Waifu from top tier Waifu.
Oh, it used to be top tier. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, it was top_tier, spelled like a teardrop, _ Waifu. And that was a reference to one of my favorite anime or whatever. But that was just like an old name I had.
Can you tell me what anime?
It was Plastic Memories. Okay. I basically was a sad boy, lonely weeb.
That's
so
fair.
I like sad romance anime. So it was top tier Waifu, like a teardrop.
Right?
So,
no, the wordplay. It's
yeah,
good. I approve.
Yeah, it was cringe, but it's whatever. But yeah, so I grinded that super hard, and I had seen this guy his name's Pharaoh, He is like a god of RE4.
Mm-hmm.
And he like now he has like 25,000 attempts and like 5,000 streamed hours of RE4. And he's like this really awesome dude, streams a lot, but I noticed that he could only ever stream RE4 and get viewers. If he streamed anything else, he wouldn't get viewers. So I went into RE2 like, okay, that's not going to happen to me. Like, I love Pharaoh, he's an awesome dude, but I'm not going to let that happen to me. So, after I got partner, after I had this this viewer base built up, I built the expectation that I was going to play other games and that that's going to be okay and that that's what the channel's based off of. And with RE2, once I started to not like the speedrun as much, I like took the plunge, went back to RE4. Actually did better when I played RE4 than when I was playing RE2. So that was a huge sigh of relief. Did some RE4 for a while. And then I started to establish myself as what I like to call a variety speedrunner. Like, that would be this type of speedrunner like maybe Distortion 2 or Maxi Lobes or maybe Bakma Soup or someone like that, where they pick up new games every month or so, grind it till they feel like they're done, and then they move on. And maybe you do marathons where you run all those previous games before, but the expectation is that you are a speedrunner, not necessarily a single game speedrunner. Like, when you think of me, I want you to think of me as a speedrunner, not as a Resident Evil 2 speedrunner or a Resident Evil 4 speedrunner. And so I tried to build this expectation, and was successfully eventually able to move away from RE2. And that was really good for my mental health because I was so over RE2 after grinding it for like 6 months.
No, I think that follows. I think I might have. I guess this is a good compliment. Your streams during my work days have been very good. I feel like you're a very good workday streamer, whatever that means. I
appreciate that.
So I'm an old boy with a work from home job, so I definitely appreciate that. And so I think I've heard you talk about this before, and that's very interesting to me. As I interview more and more runners and get a sense of what they do and how people attract audiences. It's been very interesting to hear you talk about this idea of avoiding becoming known for a single game such that you're unable to move away from that game. And I think it's very interesting that if you asked me to name a game that I associate that phenomenon more than like any other game, I feel like RE4 is the one, because I feel like I've watched RE4 runners who then attempt to move to something else after having success with RE4. And things don't go well. Things are, just sort of almost demoralizing. So first off, I'm glad that you've been successful in it. The one question I would have then, and I think you've already implied this, do you feel like there's any particular steps that you took to create that expectation that you weren't just going to be RE2 make?
Yeah. I mean, so I want to talk a little bit more about that whole RE4. We call it the RE4 trap. It doesn't actually apply to RE4. I see this with every single game that I see speedrun, honestly. I think it has to do something with niche cultures, especially super niche cultures about specific games and stuff, where those people really love that game. And specifically with RE4, there are the RE4 cultists that they only watch RE4 all the time. It is all they will ever watch. They just sit on Twitch all day and just watch RE4. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. I love RE4 too. I do that a lot too myself. But there are a lot of people that are very just this is what I watch, and I will not watch anything else. And that is shared across all games that I know of. Just because that's what they're there for. That's how people come to your stream. They get there because they see the game, and that's why they join 99% of the time. And I definitely find that in particular, Resident Evil 4 has that problem. The Resident Evil series itself has that problem. It's a kind of a problem within a problem. I see it where people will be stuck to a specific RE game, but then they manage to break away. But then they get stuck inside the RE series itself, where that's a big enough series that you can do a big breadth of content. There's 20 plus games.
Oh yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're still stuck with RE, and a lot of them are very similar, so that can kind of suck. I've seen that happen to a few people as well. But specific things that I did to try to not have that happen to me. Well, first, one of my biggest inspirations of streaming is Maxi Lobes. He was like the first big streamer I ever followed because I followed him for his DMC1 world record. And I joined his stream and he was playing Fear. And to me at the time, I was like, wow, like this man has record in Devil May Cry, but he's not playing it. He's playing Fear. Like, that's interesting. Like, what's this about, you know? And he was like the first real variety speedrunner that I ever saw. And I was like, that's what I want to do. Like that right there, that's like the goal. Because like, that's just great. You know, you're not stuck to one thing. You can just do new stuff all the time. And I quickly fell in love with streaming from speedrunning. A lot of the days, I didn't really even care about speedrunning. I would just care about the stream. You know, like, did we have good conversations? Was it a good time? You know, like, if I had shit runs, it didn't matter because I had a good stream. And I find this dynamic where if the stream is good, the runs don't have to be good. If the stream is bad, then the runs are good, then it doesn't matter. So you have this balance. You know, if one isn't good, then the other can be. Sometimes they're both bad, and then that's just a bad day, but that happens, you know. And I learned this thing from Maxi. I totally stole this idea from Maxi, by the way. I don't know if he made this idea. Probably not. He probably stole it from somebody else, too. But it's where you do a marathon of the games that you know how to run, like once a week. So I might grind RE2 Monday through Friday, and then Saturday, I run RE2 and RE4. And then eventually I learn DMC1. So I do RE4, RE2, and DMC1. And you do this every week, and you add more games. And then sometimes this strategy I call the Pharaoh Strategy because it's what he used to help people get into his casual playthroughs and stuff. You start with your main game. Stream like 6 hours of RE2. Then you seamlessly transition into whatever else you're playing. Maybe you're playing Danganronpa or something. Because you build your initial audience, and then you give them a chance to give you a chance for other content. Because if you start your stream playing Danganronpa or whatever, but you're known for speedrunning, no one's going to show up. But if you build them there and then switch, you can gradually ease people into the expectation that you're going to be doing other things sometimes. And it gives you a chance to actually try those new things. And for a while, those marathons, they kind of killed the channel sometimes. Like, you stream RE2 for 5 days a week for like 100 viewers, and then you do a marathon and you get like 50. And it's like, well, the people aren't there for those other games. But you do it enough, you build that expectation, and then eventually, like now, those marathons are my best days stat-wise. Like, I could get 50 average viewers more than my normal stream by doing a marathon. Because I build this audience from a bunch of different groups, and they all collide together to come hang out for this big experience where everyone's waiting for their chance in the spotlight, their game that they're here for.
No, I think that seems like a really, really neat game plan. And also, you know, it's in effect a tried and true game plan, right? I mean, you've already mentioned that, some other streamers like Maxi Lopes have been very successful with it. And it gives you the opportunity to do what you want, which is learn more speed games. Which leads me... Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Because for me, the best part of speedrunning is learning a new run and like the first 20 runs. The grind gets pretty monotonous, depending on what the game is. But those first few runs in the learning process is my favorite.
Yeah, no, I have to agree. Just like both coming to understand what constitutes the run, as well as just getting it under your fingers and seeing how the things actually collide. It is really the most electric feeling when you're doing that, which does lead me into my next thing, which is overall, of all the runs that you've done, what is your favorite speedrun?
It's Left 4 Dead 2, for sure.
All right, that's I always figure one of the games that we'll be discussing is probably the one. So that's interesting to know. Which doesn't surprise me though. I feel like when I watched you play Left 4 Dead 2, you're always very, very excited about it, but can you give me the flip, which is, of all the runs that you've done, which is your least favorite?
RE2 Remake. I don't know if that was obvious, but yeah.
Yeah,
it's RE2 Remake.
I had a feeling. I had a guess. I thought that might be coming. And then one more specific game question that I'll ask is, what is a game that you would like to speedrun, but for, some reason, whether that be it would take too much time or it doesn't fit with your channel right now, you just haven't gotten around to it?
There's a couple. I've started doing this thing on stream where I make this list of games that I want to speedrun and these goal times that I want to get. And I try to make it a habit of showing it every once in a while and being like, hey guys, this is what I want to do. As to build towards that expectation. It's the whole, like, if you tell people about what you're going to do, when you eventually do it, people will be less shocked and they'll be more acclimated to it. So if it is something crazy, then they'll at least see it coming, And so there's a lot of games on that list, but I think right now the biggest, like, jumps for sure would be, like, I want to eventually run Super Mario World. That's a huge jump. I don't run any Nintendo games. I don't run any retro games. I don't really run any platformers except for Scooby. That's probably the biggest jump. And then Doom Eternal, no major glitches. Because I run some FPS games, but not like Doom Eternal. Like, that's quite something else.
Yeah, that's definitely that's literally a jump, as it were.
It definitely is, yeah.
Especially as we learned from. Did you watch that? Actually, were you on? No, you weren't on. The SGDQ run this past week was
Bloodshot's run.
Yeah, Bloodshot's run was
super good,
super good. I was so impressed by some of the stuff that they did in that. It was really cool. So I think my last sort of, before we get into the specific games, my last general question is, do you feel like you have a mission statement when it comes to speedrunning? Meaning, like, a sort of, role or otherwise goal that you set when it comes in, whether that just be grinding out attempts or searching for routes, tricks, glitches. How would you sort of summarize your role in speedrunning?
Okay, that's kind of interesting. So I think a lot of people have themselves established as certain types of runners. Like, I would say Igdisis, variety horror runner, right? Distortion 2, God Gamer. Everyone has their own role. My role that I envision for myself is a runner who runs very high skill ceiling and very execution heavy games, and is very good at every game that they run. If I ever pick up a game, I want to be in the top 10. Or, it depends. I mean, it depends how optimized it is. Like, RE4 top 10 is like, dedicate 10 years of your life. But I would like to be competent enough to showcase it at, like, a Games Done Quick event, and think that I could actually get in, So, for myself, I always make sure that before I move on, I have a time that I'm very happy with, and that is good. And that's just something for me personally that I just really think is important, because it's really easy to just learn a run, do like 3 runs, then learn a new run. But I don't think you really get everything out of the speedrun or totally understand it until you get to a high level. Because a lot of games really change when you get to a high level. Like, particularly Left 4 Dead 2 changed a lot at a high level. And I think that it's important to let people know that, especially because a lot of really execution-heavy games are super misunderstood, especially in the speedrun realm, because they're not that accessible. And that's part of what I want to do with my YouTube channel, is try to get people into those high execution games and explain them in a way that they can become enjoyable to watch and to, like, know more about.
No, that makes sense. I guess on that note, my one follow-up question that would be, since I feel like you sort of brought it up, what game would you most like to be able to show off at a GDQ event?
I think it would definitely be Left 4 Dead 2. Because it's never been shown solo, only co-op. A lot of people don't know about solo runs, and it is definitely the most butt-clench run that I know. So if I did a good run of Left 4 Dead at GDQ, that'd be kind of legendary.
No, that'd be sweet. It's it's funny as a viewer who is not familiar at all with Left 4 Dead 2. The more I watch that run, and especially after taking the notes for this interview, the more I realize how tense things are sometimes in that run, and, like, the more stressful it's become to watch runs of it, which is very, very
interesting.
I've
had people tell me that they like wince and, like, curl up sometimes when I'm on good pace in Left 4 Dead, because, like, there's just so much crazy stuff going on, and, like, at any moment the run could just totally die.
See, that was the stress-free part of watching your PB. Is I knew that it would be a PB, so I knew it had to be a happy ending in some way.
Yeah, there you go.
But you don't always get that when you're watching the live stream. All right, let's dig into some of the runs now. With Resident Evil 4, we've already talked about your history of the game, that it was something that you had played before and played with friends, and it was your second game speedrunning. Now, so my guess is that your interest in competing led you to focus on New Game Professional. Have you ever gone to any of the categories, or do you really just feel like you want to stick to New Game Pro?
So I have, yeah. Mainly it was like, this is what everyone runs, so this is what I should run. So I did that. And New Game Pro, I have sampled some other categories, is definitely the best category. It's the easiest to optimize. It has the highest execution ceiling. It has a decent amount of RNG, but it's not too bad. Like, probably about like 6 or 7 months in to learning New Game Pro, I was like, I watched like Maxi do no merchant normal runs. And I was like, wow, no merchant seems really cool. But if you don't know about RE4, on normal it has difficulty adjustment. So you like will take damage intentionally in some spots, or kill Ashley so that you can make the game easier. And I was like, that is really slow. Like, I guarantee you, if you didn't do DA manip, that it would be faster. Now, fast forward, New Game Normal doesn't do any DA manip now, and it's faster. You just do New Game Pro strats, but there's more RNG. So I was right. But I was like, so what if I did no merchant, but I didn't have DA? So what if I ran no merchant professional? So at the time, the category was not optimized at all. Morse, who's like a god gamer of RE4, had done a run a long time ago, and it was like 2 hours. But since then, we'd found skips all over the place and stuff, so there was a lot of time to save on No Merchant Professional. And my friend Trikelman, who started running the game a day after me, I found him on Twitch literally the day after I started running the game. He was like, yeah, let's do it. So we routed the whole thing. Me, Trikelman, and Lion, who joined in just a bit after, routed all of No Merchant. So that was my first experience with routing a speed game, which was really cool and fun. Routed all of No Merchant, and we started grinding the game down. And we brought it down to like an hour 47, which from 2 hours is like a lot. That was like a big improvement in the run. But it turns out that No Merchant Pro is like really hard, and it has like an insane amount of RNG. Because if you don't know, no merchant means you don't use the merchant. So you're stuck with one rocket launcher in the whole game, the base shotgun, the base pistol, and the broken butterfly. So you don't really have much, and you can't do striker glitch, you can't do the Ditman, so it's slow, and there's some skips you can't do because of that. So it's just really, really brutal. And so I grinded that for like 4 or 5 months with Trikelman and Lion, and I was like, yeah, that is not for me anymore. Like, I lost this. I had this really good run that was on world record pace, and I got to 5-4, which is at the very end of the game, and I just died like 4 or 5 times in a row and lost everything. And I was like, that's it. I'm done with No Merchant Pro. This category is a meme. I went back to New Game Pro, PB'd a couple times, and since then, haven't really touched any other categories. I do want to go back to No Merchant Pro because they found a bunch of new tech recently. Saves a lot of time. But yeah, definitely No Merchant Pro is the best category, or New Game Pro is the best category. And I did learn a lot from that though, and it was fun. I like routing. I learned that for sure. And when I went to the RE2 remake, I was like, I want to be the dude that routes Claire, because everyone ran Leon. So I became the Claire dude because I routed the whole game as Claire.
You know, you bring up an interesting point there about the application of new tech to other categories. I always find that, that's something that people get really excited about, because you'll go to that first base category, New Game Pro, to maybe apply that tech, but then you can turn around and you find other categories like No Merchant, and you really get to go into them and really apply. And that's that. Besides learning, I think that's also the other exciting thing, is that when you have some new toy to play with and you say, well, how does it fit here, or how does it fit here? So that's, it's neat to have that opportunity to do that.
Oh yeah, I love that. That's the best. It's so good.
Now with Resident Evil 4, what would you say is your favorite bit of tech or favorite strat? Just very open question for you.
I don't know. I guess I would say basically from 3-1, the Garrador, till like the gallery section. So there's like a 5-10 minute split right there where there's just like the execution really ramps up. You get some really cool rooms that have a lot of improvisation, some really cool strats that are pretty new. Like you start up with Waterhall and Garrador. Garrador, you just quick scope him, just totally annihilate him. It's a really easy strat once you practice it a lot, but it looks really, really cool. And then immediately after you have Waterhall, which is technically like the hardest room in the game, but it's one of those rooms where, and this is where I discovered that I like runs with RNG, because there is a lot of different things that can happen in this room, but it's almost always winnable. And that means that you can have a lot of fun just doing the room over and over and over again. And the only way to get really good at it is to just do it over and over and over again until you've seen like every pattern that's possible and know how to adapt to different circumstances, even if you're not expecting them. And so I love that section of the run because it taught me a lot about how improvisation in a speedrun is super fun. And then you get the later section with like this really cool fire grenade strat that used to only be possible on 30 FPS, but was recently discovered to be possible on 60, where you get this red zealot guy to look like he's on fire, but he's actually not, and then you just insta-kill him, and it saves like a minute. It's really cool.
That's neat. And that's that's interesting, too. You brought up another thing I wasn't even thinking about, too, was, the way that especially a game like Resident Evil 4, and you have to account for the different frame rates and the different products of that. But generally in Resident Evil 4, you stick to either, 30 or 60, right?
Yeah, 30 or 60. Generally, it's around 60 because it's faster and it just feels better. Sure.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. The one glitch I wanted to ask about in particular, and I think it's been around for a little bit, but just because it's, as someone who's just sort of watching through once and taking notes, it really stands out. What's going on with the minecart level?
So the Minecart Skip was found a couple years ago, and it like totally revolutionized the game at the time because it was like really optimized. And then all of a sudden this Minecart Skip was found. It saves like 2 minutes. So like everyone had to redo their runs and stuff, and it like reinvigorated the scene at the time. But the Minecart Skip's cool because it's just like a 2-minute auto scroller. And what you do is you dip in to your TMP, and then you like trick the game. No one really knows exactly how it works, but you drop down in a specific spot, and then you move to the left. And because you're moving faster, because the dipman glitch, it just kind of clips you to the ground. And the out of bounds in RE4 is really interesting because as soon as you get out of bounds, the game creates an instantaneous floor wherever you are on your height coordinate. So if you ever accidentally get out of bounds, you're instantly creating a floor that you can then walk around and you can't go up or down on.
That's wonderful. Because I know there's other out of bounds too, and I was really wondering, were there floors there, or because I'm so used to getting out of bounds and just falling into the void.
Yeah, usually when you clip out of bounds in the game, you fall into the void. But for some reason in RE4, whenever you clip out of bounds, it creates like an infinite plane that you can walk on. And so what happens is you create a little infinite plane, right? And then you can walk on this infinite plane to the end of the auto scroller. Now the problem would be that you're way too high, so you can't get back down. But actually, the minecart track has a platform on it. And if you're on this infinite plane, you get close enough to another platform, the game's like, oh, that's inbounds again. So it snaps you to the platform. So you go from this infinite plane to snapping back onto the platform, and then you just follow the tracks all the way to the end.
Just that easy, right?
Yeah, just do it, forehead. It's not that bad. It's actually really simple. It's like one of the easiest tricks in the game, but it saves a ton of time.
Oh yeah, no, and of course being able to skip a section like that is wonderful. What do you have plans for this game for the future? I know you always have such an emphasis on the competitive aspect of it. So do you feel like you would be angling to push this time in regards? I don't know. You mentioned there was recent text. I don't know if that's how fresh that is. If that's something you need to incorporate into your PB that you would return to the game.
Well, so one of my goals has always been, when I started running the game, the in-game time world record was a 1:29:17. My current in-game time PB is a 1:30 flat. So for me, it would be really, really cool if I beat the world record that was at the time when I started running the game. Since then, it's lowered multiple minutes, but that would just be a really cool personal goal. As well as, I was at top 10 at one point, but I've been bumped to 13th. And one of my main role models for this run, Mike Wave, is now at 10th. So if I could bop him and then get down into 10th, then that would be really cool as well. As well as the only person that really submits it to GDQ is Mike. So if I got a faster time than him, then I could have a chance to get it at GDQ, which would also be really cool. But I don't know if I actually want to grind it that much, because that's like a whole nother minute and a half of time save. And the run is like already really tight. Realistically, I have a 126.08. I would love to get a 125. I literally, if I save 9 seconds, I'm like super happy. But those other ones are like more long-term goals.
And of course, but I mean, I think the nice thing too is that, because of the way you structure your streaming, not that you're grinding the game, but you're never really fully having months of rust to deal with.
Yeah, that's also one of the awesome things about doing those marathons every week is, I mean, I don't always do the games, all of the games all the time. Like, I know 13 now. Yesterday I did one where I did all of the games. It took 16 hours. So, like, I can't do all of them. I know too many games now, but the tried and true ones that I know I'm going to go back to and that I really enjoy, like RE4, are in every time. So, at the very least, I'm doing one run a week. So, I don't really get that rusty. If I really want a PB, I can do like 2 days of attempts and I'm fully derusted and I am just back into the attempts. And that's like another thing that I really like about doing those marathons is they keep you frosty on the games that you want to be, and you can just like pop them out whenever you want. Like you got an event coming up, don't need to derust, you're already there, stuff like that.
All right, let's move on to Left 4 Dead 2, which, as you said, is your favorite speedrun, at least at the moment. Now, the category that I had watched, you had a very helpful Left 4 Dead 2 solo speedrun explained in 5430, which is the video that I had watched for this. Of course, any of the videos that I mentioned specifically will be linked in the podcast description, so be sure to check those out. One of the things I thought was really cool about this, and this is something I had picked up from watching you before. I always tell people, like, when you're making a leaderboard, don't start throwing out categories or subcategories before you really truly understand the game. And I think this is like a great example of that, because this speedrun doesn't stick to one difficulty. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so basically the category is main campaign solo. So you do the main 5 Left 4 Dead 2 campaigns. So Dead Center, Dark Carnival, The Parish, Swamp Fever, and Hard Rain. And any difficulty, which means you're allowed to switch difficulties whenever you want. We have a vote bind .cfg. It's a file that lets us use hotkeys to vote fast. And that allows us to switch between difficulties on the fly. In that version of the game, in main campaigns, there's no cooldown on your votes. So I could vote to expert, then vote to easy immediately after, then vote to normal right after, then vote to expert again, then vote to switch maps, all within like 10 seconds, as long as the vote takes to play, basically. And this is super useful because you're not allowed to use console commands during the run. So in main campaigns, a lot of people will ask, like, why don't you run the mutation? Because there's a mutation in the game that allows you to play with no bots. But this mutation isn't the base game. It's like a side thing. So that's not what we run. We run the main game. And that means that you're stuck with 3 bots. And for those who don't know, in Left 4 Dead, if I hit these sick bunny hops all the way across the map and get to the safe room, the bots aren't going to do that. Occasionally they'll teleport, but you can't really force them to, and they'll teleport at bad times occasionally. So you could have the sickest movement in the West and bunny hop all the way across the planet to get into the safe room, and then lose 2 minutes because you just wait for bots to catch up. So the way we avoid this is you start the map on expert, and then you team kill your teammates, vote back to easy so you don't die right away, and then finish the map. When you get to the next map, you vote to expert again, kill the bots, then vote to easy, rinse and repeat. There is a glitch in Dark Carnival that allows you to kick the bots by doing something in the finale. And we do that, but we're not allowed to just straight up use console commands. So you do Dark Carnival first because of this, so you don't have to deal with the bots on some other maps. But you still are going to have to switch to expert because you can't do team damage on easy. And expert commons and specials are like insane, so you don't want to play on expert the whole time either.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. So again, this the 5430 video that I watched was a deathless run. So I wanted to ask, as a speedrunner, what are the RNG risks? Like what's going to end your run? Everything, right?
Everything. Left 4 Dead 2. I literally cannot think of a more RNG heavy speed game that's not a JRPG. A lot of people will say RE3 classic. No, this game has way more RNG. It's straight stupid. So, if you don't know, in Left 4 Dead 2, weapon spawns are random. Item spawns are random. Common infected spawns are random. Special infected spawns are random. Tank spawns are random. Witch spawns are random. Sometimes the route that you have to take is random. And hordes are random too. Any and pretty much all of these things could entirely kill your run if you don't get good RNG. Now, it's like I said in RE4 with the Waterhall, it's RNG, but most of the time it's winnable. And this is true with Left 4 Dead as well. This is why it's fun. The game has such a high skill ceiling, especially with the movement mechanics, that if you play really, really well, you can almost always win. Now, that's not always true. Sometimes you just get, like, totally annihilated by RNG. But most of the time, you will win if you are really good. And this makes it super satisfying and very, very tense. And this is why I love Left 4 Dead speedruns, because since so much of it is random, every single run is entirely different. They never feel the same. I could legit grind this game for 12 hours a day and not get bored, because every run is different. And it's so random that you don't even really notice patterns. Like, special infected spawn on a timer, but which special infected you get is random, and where they spawn is random. So, you might generally know when you might get a special, but you really have to listen out, and you really have to know, like, the insane amount of situational awareness that you need to do a run like that is just awesome. Like, if I'm here and I hear a smoker, where are the possible locations? What are the likelihood that he's actually going to get me? Do I need to focus on him? Should I leave him alive? Because there can only be so many specials. Like, there's so much going on, and it just makes it super, super fun. I love this run.
Yeah, I mean, hearing you talk about it, I feel like I'm sort of connecting something that we discussed earlier, which is that you love learning runs, and it seems like in a game with this amount of randomness, in effect, you almost never stop learning.
Oh, exactly. You see new stuff all the time. You go, like, you just learn all the time, like, oh, okay, if I get a spawn here, that this is probably where he's going to be, or this is one of the possible outcomes for where this is going to be, and stuff like that, and that just makes it like, you will never know everything, and even if you do, you still have to be able to execute, and sometimes that execution is super hard.
Now, there is some, as you mentioned, there's cool movement tech, there's some bunny hopping and other things. I was going to ask you, similar to RE4, do you have a favorite skip or other trick?
I don't know. My favorite part of Left 4 Dead is just the bunny hop in general, because it just feels super fun. And the way that you have to weave in and out of random spawns makes it so that your hops are different every time. But there are a few, like, really cool skips that I like. This game has a lot of cool skips. I made a video covering the roller coaster skip recently. That's one of my favorites for sure. You get to climb up this roller coaster and skip the whole crescendo event, which is awesome. And then also on Swamp, there is a glitch called Infinite Stumble, where you shoot. If you stun yourself, then you can switch weapons, and your stun loop just keeps going, and then eventually you just fly over a lake with your stun loop.
That one I really wanted to sort of say how much I like that. It reminds me very much too of there's an infinite jump glitch in a Just Cause 1 that works very similarly, where you can start your jump animation, and then just by switching weapons with the precise timing, you can jump infinitely into the air and repeat the animations. It very much reminded me of the same, except of course in Left 4 Dead 2, you're stumbling backwards and switching weapons.
Yeah, it's a super cool trick. Unfortunately, it only works on the earliest patch. So, like, I started running all campaigns, which is a different category, and it doesn't work on that version. But, like, another thing that I like about the skips is that there is backups for all of them. Like there's this skip in the parish where you skip this float ride. There's like 6 different ways to skip it. If you have really, really good bunny hops, you can bunny hop across the gap. If you get a propane tank, you can infinite stumble across it. If you don't get either, then you can do what's known as a common boost to jump it. There's like a ton of different ways to get over this thing. It's really cool. And since a lot of those elements are RNG, you know, if one fails, then you have backups. And that's really cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it really does seem like in this game you have a really, really cool tool set. I mean, just watching, I noticed, you know, a bunch of different things. I mean, I think it's such a small one, but one of my favorites was just dropping a propane tank out a window to use the explosive force to prevent the fall damage from killing you at one point.
Yeah, that's on Hard Rain. That's a really cool one. And that one in particular is really cool because, like, the other day I was doing all campaigns, and one of those maps is Dead Air. And there's this jump that you have to do in Dead Air where you counter strafe and then land on a pipe. But the fall gives you like 94 fall damage or something. So even if you have max HP, you have like 6 HP left. So you have to heal immediately. And it's really scary because if you mess it up at all, you die, right? So, but like sometimes you get this really awesome improvs. Like there was a boomer at the bottom by the drop. So I'm like, oh, okay. I just jumped off the edge and shot the boomer right before I hit the ground. The boomer stuns me, cancels my fall damage, and I take no fall damage. Like, and it's faster. Like, just cool stuff like that just sets up for like these insane backups or like really cool one-time strats. Where if you know enough about the gameplay mechanics, you can just improvise and do stuff like that.
Now, I know recently you said of course we were discussing in relation to you know the video main campaigns, but you did just mention now that you've been working recently on all campaigns, but I guess the other campaigns are like add-ons, so you're not playing on that original version, right?
Yeah, exactly. So recently I thought, oh man, main campaigns, Left 4 Dead 2, that is the hardest speedrun I know. That is so hard. Little did I know, all campaigns is like twice as hard. So, all campaigns, instead of the main 5, you run all of the campaigns. I know. What a interesting category name.
No shit.
Yeah, no shit. But since you can only run on one version of the game per run, this means that you have to use the earliest patch that has every map. Now, that changes the run a lot, because the earliest patch that has every map, there's 13 maps. There's a lot of patches, right? Like, the game changes significantly. So, on the patch that you do all campaigns, you can't do infinite stumble. So, maps like Swamp 1 become much harder. And the biggest one is, you can only vote once a map. So, that makes the run way harder. Because, you know, you start on expert, you kill the bots, you switch to easy. Okay, well, now when you get to map 2, what do? You have to switch to expert to kill the bots. But now you have to do map 2 on expert. So half of the game you have to run on expert if you want to be fast. Or you'll lose minutes to bots. So the way you set this up is all the maps where you need bots, you do those first. And then you do Dark Carnival and you kick all of the bots. So you end up you do 5 maps where half of the game is on expert. And then for the other 8, you kick all of the bots. Now, it doesn't get totally easy. In main campaigns, the difference is you kick all but one bot because you do Dark Carnival first. And you need one bot to do some skips, right? But killing one bot is a lot faster than killing 3, so that saves some time. Now, in all campaigns, since you need bots for so many maps, you just do all of them, and then when you get to Dark Carnival, you kick all the bots. And that means that you do 8 maps with no bots, which is really cool. You can play on easy the whole time, too, because you don't have to switch difficulties. But in all campaigns as well, recently there was a leaderboard change that allows you to switch whether or not you're playing on the realism game mode or not, mid-run. So it was discovered that in the Left 4 Dead 1 maps, the finales are 20 seconds faster each map if playing on realism. So what you do is, when you do Dark Carnival, you play it on Expert Realism, which is the hardest mode in the game. So once you finish Dark Carnival on Expert Realism, then you do the rest of the game on Easy Realism. Now, while the game's on Easy, it's still not easy. If anything grabs you, you instantly die. And since you can't vote, your deaths are slower because you have to wait for your health bar to go down. And realism makes it so that you can't crown witches, which means you can't insta-kill witches. So sometimes you're just fucked. A witch spawns in the safe room door, that's just GG. There's nothing you can do because you can't kill the witch because it's on realism. So you just die. And the run is also over twice as long. Main campaigns is about 55 minutes. All campaigns is about 2.5 hours. So if you take the insane RNG density from main campaigns and apply it to all campaigns, it just becomes an absolute fucking shit show. Like, there's literally only ever been one run finished that has no deaths. And it's not even world record. Like, it's insane.
Now, do you have any goals for these runs right now for all campaigns or main campaigns?
Deathless. I would love a deathless all campaigns.
You love deathless,
run.
yeah.
I don't know if that's possible, but I would love a deathless all campaigns run. That would be really cool. All campaigns isn't really run for various reasons, as you can tell. But
yeah, sounds like it.
210 is world record. That 210 does not have the 2-minute time save from realism. So realistically, a 2.8 is like pretty doable. But the next time is a 2.17. So I think second is a good goal. Just get like a 2.16 or something, and grind for deathless eventually, maybe. But right now, like, my time's like a 2.41. And like, I've been 20 minutes ahead on my splits before. Like, it's one of those games where you have insane time save and then insane time loss. And I like that because personally, when I grinded RE2 Remake, it came down to like literally like there's 5 seconds of time save in the whole run. And I am not built mentally to handle having to perform at that level for that long. I just can't. Like, it actually destroys my brain. So I much prefer games with insane amounts of time save, time loss. Like, if I lose a minute, I can still PB. That's my type of game,
Yeah, it's more exciting to play and more exciting to watch, to be honest, than be like, well, I know in one split they have 5 seconds they can save.
Yeah, I think so too, personally. I mean, not everyone agrees, but that's what I like, personally.
All right, let's hustle on to the last game here, specifically Devil May Cry 3. Now, what's exciting about this is that, of course, you had done this run at GDQX 2019. I was there for this. I was in the audience. I couldn't find myself during the run camera, but when right when the run ends and the camera flips to the other side of the room, I was like, there's me, and there's Broseph, and there's Fru, and we're all sitting back there in the corner.
Hell yeah.
So I was in the audience for this, and this was a lot of fun. This is definitely the sort of game I'm less familiar with, and I don't think we discussed, unlike the other two, how is it that you got into playing this game? Now, you mentioned Devil May Cry 1, but was Devil May Cry 3 a game that you had played before coming to it as a speedrun?
Yes. Devil May Cry 3 is my favorite game of all time. Before speedrunning and CSGO, it was probably the game I had the most hours in. And funny enough, I did the same thing I did with RE4 with DMC3. I was like, oh man, I wonder what DMC3 speedrun's like, because it's my favorite game. But I'm like, dude, it's my favorite game. If this ruins the game for me, I'm going to be so bummed. So I was like, okay, what if I learn DMC1? I feel the same way I do about Scooby-Doo, about DMC1. Like, I'm probably not going to play it again. I love the game. Probably a fun speed run. If it ruins the game for me, that's okay. And I learned DMC1 and it didn't ruin the game for me. So I was like, all right, I'm pretty sure I'm not one of those people where the run ruins the game. And that still holds true. I have learned 13 games. I can still enjoy all of them casually. And that's kind of rare. A lot of people, it does ruin the game for them casually. But yeah, I learned DMC3 and I was like, this game is so fun. And for a while, before Left 4 Dead 2, it was my favorite speedrun. Because it has a really high execution skilling and little RNG, but enough to make it interesting. And just awesome. I just love the game. And so I eventually grinded up to third. I was second for a little bit. At the time, the HD collection and the OG PC port were separated, so I technically had a world record, even though my time was like 8 minutes slower than record, but you know what I mean? Like, had the meme world record. And I really wanted to get something into GDQ. Like, I have this curse where I pick these games that are classics that lots of people love. They just so happen to have some of the most optimized speedruns ever because they're classics and everyone loves them. So that makes it extremely difficult to get them into GDQ because there's like 20 people ahead of me that have been grinding the game for 5 years. So if anyone's going to get it in, it's them, you know? And as someone who is trying to like make streaming their full-time thing at that point, like getting into GDQ is a huge thing. And until recently, that was like a huge mental block for me. Like, oh man, I gotta get into GDQ, you know, it's like this huge boost. I've seen it make people's careers like in front of my eyes, you know? So like, while that's not the only reason to go, that was definitely a reason that influenced me a lot.
Yeah, it was on your mind.
Yeah, for sure. And with Left 4 Dead 2, that actually like destroyed my psyche for a minute because I was like grinding, trying to get my goal time so I could submit. And I just couldn't get it because there's so much RNG. But that's besides the point. At this point, I was like, yeah, man, that'd be awesome. Like, that'd be so cool. And my second time submitting, I got it into GDQX. And I was like, dude, I've never done a marathon run before. I've literally never done a mini marathon run or anything. I just like did runs on my stream. So I like visualized a lot, did a lot of commentary practice in the shower and stuff, you know, classic stuff. And then I did my run. I was super nervous. I didn't have the game downloaded, so I had to download it there. And
I remember that.
I didn't get to do any practice at all because I literally got the game downloaded, put it on the flash drive, put it on, started my run. Because my run was day 1, and I didn't have it downloaded.
They had
so
an
that was
ass
scary.
connection in the back there. I remember that. I was sitting around trying to get my stupid ass game to work in the practice area, and I remember you were like it was why wouldn't they have a good internet connection? But it was taking forever, as I recall. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just staring at the download like my run's in 3 hours. Please hurry up. Like, but thankfully, I had practiced enough, and I had a really good run. The only downside was like I had a great couch. I had Wolf DNC, Maxi Lobes, and Eternal Enigma on my couch.
All stars right there.
Yeah, it was glory couch. But unfortunately, none of them run the game. You know, Maxi runs DMC1, but that game being so tech heavy and execution heavy, it was really hard to explain all the tech while doing it. And I definitely think I could have performed a lot better if I had someone like the Cosmic or like someone that actually like had run the game personally. Well, I don't like blame any of the dudes on the couch or whatever. They did an amazing job. But that was definitely like my only like regret is like I wish I could have had someone there that like could have helped me more with the commentary. But I was really happy with my run. And that's still the only GDQ run I've done yet. I mean, there's been 2 events since then, I think, or just one.
Yeah, it would be AGDQ 2020, which was in person, and then of course SGDQ 2020 just concluded. Unless you want to count Corona Relief. But
yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And I got Left 4 Dead 2 on backup actually for the newest event.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't have enough time to do the extra run, but since then, that's been my only GDQ appearance, and it was like this awesome, like life-changing thing. It was like so cool, and for me, it being my favorite game of all time, getting to show it off at an event like GDQ is like just like so cool. It was like really kind of like mind-blowing, like honestly, especially since now I would definitely say I'm like the DMC3 guy. Like if anyone thinks DMC3 speedruns, like usually they think of like either C. Mateos, who's the world record holder, but he's not very a public dude, or me. You know, like you got Maxi's got the DMC1 dude status, Cosmic's got the DMC5 dude status, I have the DMC3 dude status. And like there's this really cool meta arc narrative going on where, you know, Maxi brings action games to GDQ, and then me and Cosmic kind of bring up the rear wing, and ever since then, there's been more and more action games coming into events like GDQ. Like ESA recently had a really cool action games block. They had Beautiful Joe, then I ran DMC3, then Cosmic ran DMC5, and then Gala ran Bayonetta right after. And that's like pretty unprecedented, especially for an action game. Like me and Cosmic talk about this a lot. Like action games. Well, this is actually part of why I wanted to make the YouTube channel as well, is because a lot of people like me, when I started, think like, oh, speedrunning, Mario, platformers, you know, like they don't think about like Left 4 Dead or Devil May Cry or Beautiful Joe or, you know, stuff like that. Because you can really speedrun anything. And that's like the beautiful part about it, is that anyone can just go pick up their favorite game and just grind it into the dust and have a great time with it. And I really like that I've been a part of this scene that's kind of like trying to proliferate the knowledge that like, yeah, dude, like you can speedrun whatever. And it's not just Mario and Zelda and stuff that is out there. And those are cool, but like if you want to speedrun Devil May Cry, that's there, you know, and having that representation at events like that, especially since it's like been ramping up since we started, is really cool. And we've seen a lot more runners because of it too. So it's really awesome. We've kind of like built this little community that just keeps growing as more action games come out and like more runs get done.
Yeah, no, I just want to chime in and say I really am here to affirm everything you're saying. And in fact, I would go so far as to say that a part of what made I had started the OverBoost project focused just on a very niche area, which is my interest of mech games. But I expanded it when I really felt like I was seeing so many types of runs, you know, the action games, as you just talked about, horror games, other things, that aren't getting attention from speedrun content generally. I feel like I look at, you know, a lot of speedrun content and I see, you know, the same few Mario runners or something like that. And so I knew I just, you know, good job running the games and also good job making content like on the YouTube stuff, because I think it's there and it's, you know, it's worth looking into, both for people who just want to enjoy it, just to learn about it. You know, Devil May Cry 3 is a game with a lot of mechanics. A lot of my friends love Devil May Cry 3, and but also to get people into running, because that is part of the issue, is that yeah, you can run this, and you know it's here, you know, and you can find that via YouTube, via resources like speedrun.com. But on that point, there's a lot, of course, you know, very execution intense mechanics in Devil May Cry 3. Are there any you want to highlight? Because when I watch, I feel like I noticed a lot of very cool canceling techniques, whether it was canceling between weapons or using block to cancel. Is there anything that you want to highlight as sort of your favorite to do, especially from the perspective of the sort of tactile feel of doing it yourself?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like the whole run revolves around Royal Guard. That's basically like, we say there's a lot of tech, but we basically mean Royal Guard is awesome for the most part. Like, it just destroys everything. Basically, you can use it to block, you can use it to do perfect parries. These perfect parries do the most damage out of anything in the whole game. So it's, you know, you route out the damage for boss fights and for encounters. And I really like what's called shotgun canceling. Basically, you shoot the shotgun, and then you cancel the animation for recovering from the shotgun by blocking, and then shooting again. So shoot, block, shoot, block, shoot, block, shoot, block really fast. And it does a ton of damage, and it's super fun. And that, as well as like slash canceling, it's the same thing, but you cancel the slash. And it's really cool, because it's one of those things where I find it like bunny hopping on Left 4 Dead is a perfect example. Like, it's tick perfect every jump. You have to hit the right timing on your spacebar every time. And with a run where you have to do that as many times as you do in that run, it becomes virtually impossible to do it perfect the whole way through. And that leads to a lot of optimization being possible and the skill ceiling being really high. Now, DMC has the same thing, because the perfect block and a perfect release is a 3-frame window at 60 FPS. That's a very similar timing to one tick at 30 FPS. It's very close. It's like 1 frame less, which means that you do this all the time. You might do it like 200 times in the run, and each time is very important. It could lose you like 6 seconds every time you miss it, you know, and no one is going to be able to execute at that level that they hit it every time. And that leads to a lot of variance and a lot of improvisation, which I love in speedruns. To just be able to, oh, there's an attack coming, just reflex, release it. Oh my god, I killed every enemy in the room on accident. Oh my god, that saved 10 seconds. Like, I'll never be able to do that again type moments, you know, and that's what I love about a game like that.
Now, do you have any future goals? Obviously, you already took this to a GDQ event, which is exciting in itself. I always feel like that's a goal for me, if I can, you know, take a run that I've run the GDQ. Do you have any other goals for this right now in terms of time or other things? Or maybe taking I don't know if there's other categories that you would want to maybe showcase.
Well, right now, for DMC3, I learned a little bit of Virgil. Virgil would be cool. It's a neat run. It's not as interesting as Dante, but it's still pretty cool. And me and my homie DeCosmic, we're thinking about submitting a Dante Virgil race to GDQ. I think that would be really cool. The runs are a bit different. He would probably win by a couple minutes, but because the category is shorter. But yeah, I think that would be super cool. Very different runs showcased side by side. And then besides that, I've been working on full series runs. Actually, it's been a goal of mine for a while. Like, I want to learn to run DMC 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in a row, and then get like a good time as doing the whole thing in one sitting. Right now, I just need to learn 4 and 2 because I know 1, 3, and 5. And that's once I did that, I'm pretty much just I need to get good times in each of the games, and then I'll be done with DMC for a while. I mean, I'll always run it. DMC 3 is my favorite game. It'll probably always be in the Waifu-thon and stuff, but I don't see any like crazy goals for myself. Like, Maxie's definitely the DMC 1 dude, so I'm never getting that into GDQ. If anyone gets DMC 2 into GDQ, I want it to be Loner Hero, because that man has grinded that game into the dust by himself. And if DMC 3 is shown again, the chances that it's going to be me are pretty high. Unless someone new comes and just demolishes my Dante time or something and new tech is found. And with 4, Mecha just did it at GDQ. It was a really awesome run, and if anyone's going to do that, it's probably going to be Cosmic as well. And then 5 is Cosmic's thing as well. And a lot of the things that I've been focusing on lately is trying to do themed marathons. So instead of doing a Waifu-thon one week, we'll just do all the DMC games in a row. And instead of another one I'm working towards is the Resident Evil series run. So I do 1 through 7. And my goal is to be able to do 1 through 7 in a row before 8 comes out. So then I could do 1 through 8 when 8 comes out. Because those do pretty well on YouTube, and a lot of people find them really interesting.
No, that's a good goal to work toward. I feel like there's a lot of very interesting like series or anthology runs out there that are sort of waiting to be done and improved, and it's always exciting to see people put them together. But let's start winding down a little bit. Do some exit questions on our way out here. One of the things I like to do to sort of provide a connective tissue between the interviews in the series is to get a question from my previous guest and hand it off to the next one. And so last week, Dilwingo offered this question for the future guest, and he didn't know who it was going to be. And so he asked, if you could relate your life to a speedrun, what run and category would it be?
Oh, man. I guess, just to come full circle, Left 4 Dead 2 main campaigns probably, just because it's been super hard. It's been a lot of shit RNG, but, we just keep on hopping.
Yeah.
Just keep going. Just take it in stride, sometimes you die, but, you respawn, you keep going.
No, that seems fair. From describing your adventures with schools closing down, that certainly seems like some rotten luck at times, but you kept on going through. Now, that does mean that I would like from you a question. That can be anything gaming speedrun related. Could be as simple as favorite soundtrack, things like that. So examples of favorite soundtrack, or sillier questions like if you could mix 2 consoles to make a new one. What would be a question that you would give to the next guest?
Okay. I would say, what do you think the importance of streaming has affected speedrunning as a culture?
Okay, I like that. Kind of a little thought question there, just generally about. So again, what do you think the importance of streaming is for speedrunning culture?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, awesome. Any future games or series that you're just sort of excited to get into, especially things that are going to be released soon?
Well, I'm really excited for Resident Evil 8. I'm almost convinced it's going to be a terrible speed run, but it's one of those things where I'm just going to do it anyways, just for the views and the hype. And I love our Resident Evil, so even if it's bad, you still love it. And Resident Evil 8. Subdoom Eternal, I'm excited for that. Man, I just have so much stuff recently. I'm about to learn Halo 3. That's going to be a whole crazy world. I've never done a Halo run, but I've been loving the MCC stuff.
Yeah, I see lots of people. I feel like I've seen you and Bry and Bubbles and a bunch of people just getting into MCC stuff, which has been really exciting.
Yeah, actually, me, Bry, Bubbles, and Kronos were thinking about doing 4-player co-op in 3, actually. So
Cool.
There you go.
Looking forward to it. Yeah, putting it all together. No, that's great. That's especially as those games come out on PC too. Where can people where should they go to find you now? What projects should they be on the lookout for from you?
All right, so my main gig is my Twitch. I stream pretty much every day. Every Friday, we do what's called a Waifu-thon, where I run a bunch of games in a row. It's usually like 12 hours long. Can't miss it. I start stream at like 9 a.m.-ish Pacific Standard Time. That's going to be at twitch.tv/waifu. Simple as that. Recently, I've been focusing a lot on my YouTube. I just working super hard on that. I post a video every Sunday now. Been working really hard to get that. And that is going to be on YouTube. It's going to be Waifu Runs. Like Waifu Speedruns, like Waifu Runs. And that's how you get me on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Instagram. I'm active on there all the time. I literally just posted, like 12 hours ago, the history of bunny hopping video. It's like my biggest new thing. It's the hardest I've worked on anything content creation-wise in a really long time. It's a big 30-minute long video. I really hope you go check it out.
Yeah, I watched it earlier today, and it was good. I recommend once you finish this podcast, go watch that video.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Thanks. But yeah, that's basically it. Waifu Runs on everything else. Waifu on Twitch. Love to see you come hang out, have a great time, do some runs.
All those links will be down in the description wherever you're finding this. Waifu, thank you so much for giving me all this time and all this information.
Dude, thanks for having me. I love to talk, so I love shit like this.
No, that's believe me. That's I am right there with you. I was like, wait a second. I love talking. I guess I can do podcast stuff. Sure, let's go for it. Now there is one more thing that I need from you before we go, and that is in order to properly end the podcast. I'm gonna use like a really awkward catchphrase, like "Let's boost on out of here" or something like that. When I say that, I need you to give me your best like rocket booster engine noise.
Oh God!
Can you do that for me?
Yeah, sure.
All right, folks. Thank you so much for listening. Let's boost on out of here.
Podcast go brr.